Hey everyone, it's Alisha Braché here at Cosmic Gateway. Welcome back to another Cosmic Conversation. And this week I am very excited to have a special guest with me. I have Antoinette from Sydney, Australia. We've got another Aussie with us. She is an intuitive healer and a soul mentor, and she runs her business called To Become One, which I love the play on words, by the way. So Antoinette, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for being a part of this cosmic conversation. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Alicia. I'm so excited to be here and honoured and just really spinning about this. So thank you so much for having me. It's a huge honour.
Thank you. So let's get straight into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what your journey's been like. I'd love to hear.
Okay. Short story or long story? Whatever comes. Okay. So I was born in Sydney. I've lived in Sydney, Australia all of my life. I was born into a Maltese family. So a little bit of Southern European happening there.
I did not know that about you.
So I think Alicia's going to learn a few things about me as we go along as well. So born into a Maltese family, 3 children, and I'm the youngest and the wisest.
Always the way. I'm the youngest too.
Right? So I was brought up in a Catholic culture. Mm-hmm. In a Maltese culture. Went to Catholic schools.
It's very ingrained, isn't it? In stereotyping here, but Maltese, Italian. I know I grew up with a lot of Maltese and Italian and Greek, and I know that Catholicism was very deeply ingrained.
Yeah. So like very, I guess what you would call strict Catholic culture. Going to church every Sunday, praying, learning the rosary, learning all the prayers, praying before we go to bed, praying before we eat. So in those terms, a very strict Catholic background. Went to Catholic schools, didn't really mix with a lot of kids that were not Catholic in that sense. So went to an all-girls Catholic high school. So I was the one in the family that decided that I wanted to go to university. So I went to university, did a Bachelor of Commerce with a major in accounting and finance. And when I graduated, I started as a honors graduate program with a company called KPMG. So I was a chartered accountant.
So I'm learning so much about you because I used to do their advertising. Okay.
So corporate background, right? So, so completely not connected to what we do now.
Yeah, isn't it interesting the web? Because one of my first corporate jobs, I worked in advertising, and KPMG was our largest client. We used to do all their recruitment advertising.
Okay, it's starting to get more bizarre.
Sorry, I try not to interrupt, but that's cool.
That's pretty cool because it's like another synchronicity. So I started working there as in the audit department. So I would go out to clients and be, the one bearing the green pen, and all hell breaks loose when the auditors go to the clients. So you can't see me like that, right? Neither can I anymore.
Isn't it funny when you look back at I always refer to my corporate life as my past life because it's
absolutely
so far from who I am and what I do now.
Absolutely.
The same way.
Absolutely. It doesn't even feel like part of this life.
No.
It feels like so much has happened and transpired since then that I think, hang on, was that my past life or was that this life? Or, okay, this is like so much has happened. So, yeah, absolutely, I feel like that, you know, because I feel that that's so far away from anything, everything that I do now. So yeah, so I started my work there. After about 3 years, I think it was 3 years I was working, I actually did a very bad injury to my back. In those days, we didn't have laptops and all these little things, little gadgets that we have back then. So we were carrying like full-size monitors and bags of files and all that sort of thing. So, and the constant carrying. Anyway, one day my back decided that enough was enough. So I sustained quite a serious back injury. So I had an L5-S1 disc prolapse and sciatica down the right leg. So not knowing what was happening, it was like the rug was pulled from underneath me. And I thought, yeah, you know what, I've just got a strain. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Well, as it turned out, I wasn't fine. And I went through a series of months where I virtually could not move very well off the bed. So a year went past, back and forwards, and I couldn't go back to work. And I wasn't necessarily receiving a lot of sympathy or empathy from the workplace. So I ended up having to have surgery on my back when I was 24.
That's massive to go through at that age.
Massive. To the point that I couldn't keep on going the way I was going because just moving my leg like an inch was like absolute agony. And I can still remember what that pain is like, you know, and we came to the point that I'm 25. Where are we going? Like, I can't keep going around like this. So surgery was the only other option. So not that it was an option. So I decided to go ahead, you know, given the order of the risks and everything and all of that. And I thought, you know what, I can't live this way. So I had some belief on some level that someone was looking after me and this was the way that I had to go. So had the surgery, helped a lot with my leg pain, but didn't help so much with my back pain. But I got to the point where I tried to go back to work, and having a job where you're sitting constantly in front of, you know, a screen, yeah, well, needless to say, it didn't work out. But what was going on behind the scenes was I didn't actually realise until 5 years later. And in this time, I had met my husband. He was my physiotherapist. So something good came out of it.
I was going to say, what a yeah, cool.
How cool is that, right? Even though that love was the last thing I was looking for, like totally not focused on it. So it just goes to show when you're not looking for something,
it's always the way, isn't it? It's always the way.
And I'm thinking, really? Now? No, not now.
Inconvenient times.
Like, can you come back in a few years when I've got this sorted out? Because but timing, right? Divine timing. So in that 5 years, we met, we got to know each other, we got married. But what was happening behind the scenes in that period was that my original injury had triggered an autoimmune condition.
Just one.
Yeah. So it took them 5 years to diagnose me with this condition. And it took me 6 months to learn what it was called. So, yeah. I can now say it quite fluently, ankylosing spondylitis.
That work?
Yeah. Oh, what? Yeah. I'll give you 6 months to learn it. Yeah, so that came out of nowhere, and we just begun our married life, you know, and again, everything just came crumbling down. So it's basically an autoimmune condition. It is a constant inflammatory condition that has no cure, but it effectually affects my spine. Yeah. So, yeah, so constant pain and also irreversible damage being done to my spine. And in those days, there wasn't a lot of treatment options, but I went on what treatment was available. So we continued on this, you know, kind of trying to climb this mountain, and one thing coming after another, and some more illness came in, and then I randomly collapsed one day, and they found in 2002 that I had a tumour growing off my spine. So another hurdle, and this time I thought I was gone, because the first thing that came into my head was, is it cancer? So it was literally maybe a week or so, because I had to do a few tests to see whatever they could do externally without operating on me. They said, okay, it's got to come out. It's quite large. We don't know if it's cancer or not. So go into survival mode again. Have the surgery, get the news after a week or two that it was benign. So good news, but needless to say, the operation would take years. It took years for me to recover. The extent of the damage and the extent of, it was actually wrapped around my aorta. So I was very close to death. Clearly it wasn't my time. Work to do here. Mm-hmm. So that the couple of years after that were pretty hard. They had to do a lot of nerve cutting and everything to actually remove the tumour. So I was left with a lot of permanent damage. But I was left with my life. And for that, I was grateful. Fast forward a few years, my illness actually started to progress. So the medication I was on wasn't working, treatment wasn't working. We had to make a really difficult decision about going on some new treatment. We had tried to have a child, that wasn't working out. This medication that I was going to be on, meant we couldn't have children. So it was the most agonising, truly the most agonising decision that we had to make, because it just didn't affect me. So there was no choice but to, I suppose, give up on our idea of having a family, or at least one child. So I had to go onto the medication, and it started to work, and it was really helping. In the meantime, my father had fallen quite ill. His heart was failing. Just as I started to sort of try to get a little bit on track, his heart was failing. He had had a bypass years before that, but slowly age was creeping in, and his heart was slowly shutting down. So in 2009, he passed away, and that was difficult, to say the least. Losing, being the first family member that's in the immediate family, so And my mother didn't cope very well with his death. They had been together for, over 50 years, so understandably so. She didn't cope very well. Unfortunately, she never picked up. She never wanted to live without him.
Yeah.
Which often happens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about people in my family, and they kind of, one goes and then it's like, yeah.
And it's just like a domino effect. So 7 months after my father died, my father-in-law actually had a massive stroke and died as well. Yeah. And then 3 years later, 3 years after my father died, my mother was losing a lot of weight, and eventually we found out that she had a very rare type of cancer. And it was unlikely that she was going to survive. So she lasted for 8 months and then also passed. So it was really, really a lot.
So what you've described is basically spanning over like a decade and a half.
20 years?
Yeah, 2 decades. I was going to say 2 decades, but it's just one thing I think.
Yeah, about 20 years. So, well, it was 2013 when my mother passed, and that was 19 years since the original back injury.
Oh, so pretty much, wow, okay.
So the good part of my 20s and 30s just sort of wiped out, like as if a tidal wave had just come in, and my early 40s, really. It's just like a tidal wave, and this hurricane was just, it was almost like it just kept on coming back.
Yeah.
And each time it would come back with just that little bit more force, So it was hard. It was hard. Then brings us up to 2013, which started off a very painful year. But not long after my mother died, I had my revelation. So that might be a good way to start talking about the good stuff now.
Yeah, cool. And I just want to say thank you for sharing it. I mean, what a journey of chronic pain and illness and diagnosis and loss, and
Grief, yeah.
Grief and, I think what comes to mind for me as you're talking is like the bravest souls go through all the initiations, right?
So look, the apprenticeship was like unbelievable.
Well, and that's, one thing I always say is that, I've had the privilege of working with you and having healing session, and you are a magnificent healer. And honestly, I'm very, I'm really picky. I'll be honest. But working with you is just magnificent, and it really goes to show, in what I feel, and a lot of people, the true healer emerges through grief, loss, and sorrow, through experience, and then the healer emerges. So I can see by what you've gone through in this incarnation, and I'm sure many others that has kind of built you to where you are today. But I won't interrupt. Let's go back to 2013. I want to know.
What do you want to know?
What was the revelation? What was the kind of turning point for you? Because obviously you lived a very kind of, can I say, very 3D life, like, job, illness, religion, all that sort of stuff. Needless, can I ask, needless to say, did you believe in the afterlife? Did you believe in the spirit world? Was that a part of your world going back prior? Or
Yeah, it always was a part of my world. Like, you know, I always believed that the soul goes on. And of course, we had been taught about heaven, hell, and purgatory. But we were taught that you get one chance, and if you stuff up, you go to hell for all of eternity. So a lot of it wasn't spiritual as such. It was more dogma and
religious dogma, right?
religious dogma, and it was, you've got to do this and you've got to do that and you've got to be a good girl
All
and all of that. But I always believed that there was you know, life after death, and I think it was even more cemented when I watched my father dying. I was there when he passed, and I was holding his hand when he passed. And for me, I was actually so surprised just how grateful I was to have been there in that moment. As difficult as it was, that was a bit of a turning point, I guess, for me, in that I watched him and the things that he was doing and the things that he was saying, and just in those, yeah, couple of days before death.
Did he go through? Because I know a lot of people at that stage of passing, they look very sick, and then all of a sudden they have a day where they brighten up and okay, oh wow, you know, they're getting better, and it.
Yeah, because my father did that. Like, my father hung on a lot because he didn't want to leave everyone, and my mother was very attached, and my brother was very attached. So he was hanging on, and I think he really just needed someone for him to tell him it's okay. You know, it's okay. But he did. He had a bit of a day where he got up and he was actually walking around his room, which he wasn't actually doing like for quite a few days beforehand. So, and he wanted to actually eat. So yeah, he did have a day where we thought, you know what, he's going to make it after all. Like, he's going to be okay. You know, and he was communicating with us and joking, and you know, I get my sense of humour from him. Yeah, and we thought everything was going to be okay, but then the next day he didn't wake up. He was just unconscious all day. But being there in that moment, I had always believed in it, but seeing in front of me, and I guess subconsciously I was aware, but consciously I just wasn't aware. And I just stepped up and, you know, and I had the strength to say to him, Dad, if you need to go, it's fine. We'll be fine. You know, in amongst all the chaos that was going on around me, I felt that I had the strength to step up and be there and hold his hand and say, you're going to be fine, go to the light, you know, and all of this. So, yeah, I always did have a belief, but I guess the difference is that it was fear-based.
Right, okay.
Coming from religion, in the sense that, you know, you better be good while you're on earth, because if you're not, you're going to go to hell.
Right, okay.
And there was nothing about reincarnation or past lives. You know, we weren't taught that. Anything about spirituality, psychics, mediums was all from the devil.
Yeah.
Right?
I learned. As I mentioned, a lot of my friends were Catholic.
Yeah.
High percentage of them, and I was very open about my spirituality and my mediumship and all that as a kid. And yeah, I learned the hard way that it's the devil's work. Did I? Yeah, it's very okay.
Yeah. So I didn't dabble in anything. I mean, I don't really have a lot of memories about having psychic ability or mediumship. I do remember an out-of-body experience that I had when I was about 17, but I don't remember telling anyone about it. And I would never have gone home and told, I surely wouldn't have gone and had an interview with the local parish priest and told him that, put it that way.
Yeah, that would go down a treat, wouldn't it? So, so 2013, what were, you know, I love to know and understand like what people's awakening process is like, you know, what was the flick of the switch? What was the event or some of the events that kind of made you shift and go through that awakening process? Because obviously now, I mean, you do energy healing, you're a medium, you work in numerology, like everything in the esoteric realm, you kind of, that's your forte, that's your world, that's your work now. So you've really gone from, I love that, you know.
It's not amazing.
So how did we get from, because I'm guessing that from A to B was not a smooth line.
It was no straight line.
Yeah.
It was no straight line. Okay, so my mother passed in March 2013, and I guess it made me more aware of life and how short, you know, it is and how it can be taken so abruptly. And
yeah, I think it's a real big wake up alarm clock for a lot of people.
Yeah. So it sort of made me think, you know, okay. And I mean, I had all those years, like over the span of 20 years, where I was questioning my self-worth, my purpose, my existence. Is this it? Is this what I'm here to do? Like, am I here to just suffer? Like, I don't understand. And I truly, truly believed for such a long time that I was put on earth to suffer.
Breaking. But I'm sure you're not alone in that, you know.
And this is why I want to share this, because I know that there's people out there that have probably gone through similar things that I have gone through. And it's important for everyone to know the mindset that you can be in, you know, stuck in that vicious circle of the 3D life, and if you like, even victim consciousness, you know. So 2 weeks after my mother died, so I started to contemplate, and I'm thinking, you know, what am I doing here? What am I here for? And this was only 2 weeks, like, after my mother's death, so clearly very, very short amount of time. And well, divine intervention came in.
I love divine intervention.
And didn't allow me to continue, I guess, with the grief that much, in the sense that I first became in contact, I guess, with the energy of my divine counterpart, my twin.
That will do it every time, won't it? Sorry, I hate to make jokes, but
So
he kind of, or you got connected with him. Did that create like an activation within you? Would you say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh,
I just got chills. Sorry.
And like, I didn't know really which way was up. 2 weeks after my mother had passed. You know, going through the motions, and I just connected with this energy, and it was just like someone had put a defibrillator through me. It was intense. It was out of this world. It was surely not in 3D world. And it was just this fixation of energy that ran like through my whole body, and not knowing what.
I can even imagine what you would be like, not having any context for an activation like that, and you, because I know you're feeling very well. Damn.
Not at all. You know, and I was obviously grieving. the loss of my mother, and to be in contact with this energy was overwhelming, to say the least. I didn't really, it was funny because I'm an overthinker, and I didn't actually overthink it at the time. It was that intense that all I could do was just sit with that energy and not even wonder what it was doing.
I just want to just go in there, because I think that's a really key point with divine partnership, is that it's not meant to be understood logically. It's meant to be connected through feeling and emotion and understanding and energy. So,
yeah. And I was just,
in your experience being an overthinker, what is this?
Like, it wasn't happening up here. It was happening solely. Yeah. And this incredible rush of energy, and it was honestly like someone had resuscitated me, like, you know, from death. It was just incredible. And that was the first spark, like just that little bit of spark that started to ignite me. And I was just drawn to this energy, and it wasn't even about being drawn to the person as such. It was it was like I was just like having this direct, which I know now is twin flame relationship, but this direct soul connection. You know, and it's as if you're one, like you're just one energy. And it was just so revitalizing and beautiful. But fast forward a day or two, then the mind started to come in, and you know, and I'm thinking, what is all this about? You know, and it was, I didn't really at the time, and quite a few years later, I didn't understand it. Like, you know, it was like you said, didn't have any context at all about this. I've come from a religious background, not a spiritual background, not even understanding energy.
I mean, I think about me, right, and like, obviously this has been my world from day one, you know, and I even remember reading a book before I left high school about twin flames. It wasn't called that, but it was, you know, I had pretty good comprehension of all this sort of stuff. Even that didn't prepare me for the journey I've been on. So I couldn't even imagine for you just to have, damn, wow, and just to have you know, a sequence of events just kind of go, you know, your soul's really ambitious. Hats off.
Total spin out, like total spin out, and thinking, oh, I need to know more about this person. I need to find out, you know, I just was so drawn to the energy because the energy made me feel good, and I had years of pain and devastation and suffering, and this was like someone that just breathed new life into me, you know, and so it started a whole sequence of events where people were being brought into my life that were spiritual. I started to watch documentaries on spirituality. I started to read books. I just wanted to know everything. And in finding out about this person, I also found out a lot about his path and his spiritual path. And it really resonated.
Would you say that the counterpart in your dynamic was probably the more spiritually awakened one?
Yes.
Right, okay.
At that time, perhaps.
At that time, yeah.
Yeah.
There isn't really, but as
Absolutely, because I was reading and learning and reading about mysteries of the Bible, but not so much the dogma. But, you know, have you ever thought this? Have you ever questioned this? I started to question everything, and I never questioned anything. You know, I sort of kind of always accepted what my parents had taught me and what my teachers had taught me, and didn't really look outside the box. So this was huge, like for me, to start reading and contemplating and you know, all these people were put in my path that would just tell me just enough information that I needed for that amount of time, just to process, just to get it started, you know. And there were a lot of things that sparked me, but I think the actual day that the switch turned on was a day that I was reading a book, and I read a passage, and it was about being stuck and how pain is a seducer, and how you can be stuck in a mindset that this is it, this is your life, this is what is never going. You forget about any good times you've ever had. Everything is just hard and difficult, and everything is just all about suffering. And when I read that, and then the last line was something like, you can't stay there because that's where you become bitter, and it will eventually destroy you.
Wise words, very wise.
And in that moment,
The light bulb switch.
yeah,
The power of words, huh?
the power of words. You know, it was, I had already been started this activation process, but then to read those words and for them to resonate so much with me, you know, it was, oh, that's what I was in. That's what I felt for those 20 years, you know. And then I realized, you know, through the activation from my twin, that I couldn't stay there anymore. And this paragraph was describing to a T.
Like directly written for you.
Like directly written for me, so that I could realize that, oh my God, that's it. If I can't stay there, because if I stay there, it's going to destroy me. And then the penny started dropping about why I went through everything I went through, and the gift of the adversity that comes.
I was going to say, do you view, the last 20 years, do you view that differently now since going through your awakening? And can you tell us a little bit about how you see that now?
I see that now as an initiation,
yeah,
as a training of sorts. You know, I see it as a background for me, as a foundation for me to know what it's like to go through suffering, and you know, and develop as an empath, and to be able to, to be able to feel what it's like to suffer disappointment, pain, physical, so, you know, spiritual, emotional, every type of level of pain. And I realized that if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be who I am, because every one of our experiences makes us a whole, good or bad. And now I never knew that I would see it this way, but I see it as a blessing, because it was through all of that that I was able to become who I am now.
It truly is, isn't it? You know, when you're in it, and I can't even fathom what 20 years with everything that you experienced, what that would be like. But I imagine that it just didn't seem like there was any
no way out.
Because when you're in it, that's all that there is.
and you can't get out of it. And I used to hate people saying to me, "I'll be positive, it'll be okay." I'm thinking, what do you know?
Mm.
You know, and you know, with the help of my self-discovery, I started to meditate, and I do an ancient form of yoga called Kriya Yoga, which I actually found myself. That's where I found myself, in the silence. And I started to put the pieces together about why everything had happened. And I'm thinking, well, how can I do what I'm here to do, remember who I am, without knowing, how can I be a healer when I don't know what it's like to go through that suffering? And for years I didn't share my story.
What do you think held you back from sharing it?
I think a lot of it was cultural. I think the biggest thing that held me back was fear.
The number one every time.
Yeah, fear. I wasn't very good at expression, in that I wasn't really given
I found that crazy because you articulate yourself so beautifully.
Yeah, right. Wasn't me 5 years ago. That twin flame thing.
The many blessings, but I think that's beautiful, and I think it's, you know, they're when you're seeking a healer or support or looking for someone, you know, you really, I don't know about you, but obviously people gravitate towards me who resonate with aspects of my own experience. Do you find the same thing with you, that
Yeah,
the people that come to you, you know, you can help them because you fully embody and know what it's like to be on the flip side of their experience?
absolutely. And I see the beauty in that, you know, and during that time of meditation, I went in and I assessed and I examined and I identified who I am, you know, and then they were saying to me, metaphysics. So I started to study.
The whisper, was it?
The little whispers of the soul that I couldn't hear before because of all the noise that was and all the chatter that was going on. So, you know, it was a beautiful thing just to go within. And people come to me now and they say to me, you know, I really want to work on this block or this challenge or this belief system, and I can totally relate to what they're feeling, because either I've come from a similar type of background or a similar religious belief system, or even suffered similar pain to what they've suffered. You know, so it is quite amazing how people come to you, and then all of it started to make sense, and I thought, well, I didn't do this with initially to be a healer, but yeah.
But you know, your soul, you know, it's preordained. I truly believe that, you know, you already had pre-constructed that before this incarnation. It's just going through the process and remembering what was like, you know, obviously you do this work, this is your full-time practice. Like, what was there a moment, was there because I know I know a moment for me, was there something that was like, I have to do this, like, or was it more gradual?
No, I think it came as a moment. I was sort of kind of thinking of doing it, but then I thought, oh, who am I to do? You know, I'm not going to do this. And then I felt like this jolt in my soul telling me, you have to do this.
I just felt that as you said that. Powerful.
You know, it just went like just straight to my heart, head out of it. And it's funny because the day that I decided that I was going to apply for my ABN and do all of that was International Women's Day. And I thought, this has just come full circle. Oh, I still get chills. I did it on that day. That's when I actually started my practice, applied for the ABN and all that. And I thought, this is all about empowering now. It's all about transmuting all this suffering and pain, and learning the lessons, and now guiding other people on their journey.
So beautiful. So beautiful.
And it just filled my heart. And people would say to me, there's just such an absolute change in you. And it's so true that your outer self reflects your inner self.
I was going to say, how is it viewed now? Because obviously people would have known you as one way, and now you're, completely, that can be challenging.
Well, it was very challenging. Needless to say, a lot of people dropped out of my life.
Yeah.
I went through a stage of, I guess, isolation, in that some people couldn't accept the changes that had happened to me. And these were people that I had known, a long time. I sort of stayed in the closet for a while. Until I could,
yeah, love it.
in the spiritual closet, gets bigger and bigger.
I think, sorry, I'm trying to not make everyone dizzy, I think, you know what, I think that the solitude, and that's a big part of the awakening and ascension process, is going through those changes of things dropping out of frequency, literally people, places, things, and friendships and family, and that is real and challenging in the isolation that you go through. But it is a necessary process, and I think being in the spiritual closet also is a necessary process, while you're still forming your new beliefs or remembering, and
yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I mean, it really takes that silence to be able to, whether it's meditation or whether you just retreating, I guess, into your own space. You need that time without that external interruption, because I found that I did sort of go up and down, and there was some resistance on my part, because for me it was like, what? I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was happening. I thought I was going crazy, and hearing voices, and thinking, all right, I'm done. I don't know what's going on here. And I had no training about it. So, it was very difficult at first. And
your gifts kind of through that.
It just sort of clicked on. Yeah, and because I'd gone to a reading and a lady said to me, you're gifted, right? And I said, gifted in what? And she said to me, you're a medium. You're a natural medium. You have the ability. You need to think whether you want to develop it. And
well, you're like, what?
And I'm thinking, it's taken everything for me to actually come here and have a reading.
Wow, yeah, because that would have been such a taboo, not done thing.
Absolutely. And I struggled with it, because I thought, am I not honouring my parents' memory? There was some guilt. There was some, I just wanted to go so forward with this. Religion was so not filling me. It was so restrictive, but the world of metaphysics was huge.
Shiny and glittery.
Yeah, and I just wanted to go, but then I think it would, kick in, and I'd say, what would my parents think? What, so there was still a lot of that conditioning that I was in that, it made me doubt. And it took me a long time to actually embrace embrace it, because I had come from such a different background.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, like I said, it took everything for me to just actually go for a reading, and then to be sitting there and being told, okay then, what am I supposed to do with this?
I love that. You know, it fills my heart to hear people's stories and the craziness. And, you know, we all have our individual path, but there are so many common threads, you know.
Absolutely.
It's so beautiful. So I guess just to kind of bring it into full circle and encapsulate it all, like, um, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Like, obviously, working your soul mission, you've gone through so much transformation. It's utterly profound. It's incredibly inspiring. You know, what would you say to other people if they are going through, say, chronic pain, or have identified somewhat with your story? You know, what's something that you would share with them about where to start, or what would your message be?
I would say, don't overthink it. I would say, at the time, I was really looking for someone to support me, but I wasn't aware of the circles and the resources out there to be that were available to guide people. What I would suggest is to actually embrace it, not be afraid, and to, because fear is such a huge big thing that a lot of I know myself and a lot of my clients have when they come in, because there's confusion. So allow yourself time and allow yourself the space to actually, whether or not you meditate or whether you go for a walk in nature, or allow yourself the space to go deep within and connect with your heart rather than your head. Because the constant conflict that I know that happened with me was difficult, because I knew I was resisting it. And as we all know, you can only resist so far, because eventually
what you resist persists, doesn't it?
Yeah. So all I can say, be open-minded, and give yourself the time and the self-love. Like, go in and go look within and try and listen to that soul voice.
Perfectly said.
Because that's what's important.
Truly is, that soft, gentle voice that comes from within, that really knows everything.
Yeah, and trust your intuition, because we think that the answers are outside of us, but all the answers are within us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to connect and sit down and have a conversation and share your journey, and what a incredible journey you've been on. And so now obviously you're working and you're doing your intuitive healing and your soul mentorship. So I know that you kind of do a mixture of all amazing things, and people can, obviously you're based in Sydney, but you can also offer them remotely as well.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So, what I'll do is, if you feel, a synergy, a connection with Antoinette, and you resonate with part of her story and you feel like you would like to connect with her, I will put all the details down in the description box below, how you can contact her and get to know her and message her and book a session with her. And I highly recommend, as I said before, I did have the honor of having a session with you, and it was like just having a gentle warm hug, and it was so revitalizing, and you know, and it's important, even if you are a healer. You know, I've been doing this work for a long time, and I was at a point where I needed support, you know, so it doesn't matter who, where, how far along, doesn't matter, you know. At certain points we all need support, and it's to connect with people who share a similar vibration, I think, is the ones that can support us best. So I encourage you all to connect with her if you feel a resonance, and yeah, comment in the description box if this has sparked something within you. We'd love to hear from you and what you have to share. Until next time, thank you all for joining us and being here for another cosmic conversation. And once again, thank you, Antoinette, and maybe we'll have you back again and we can pick out some topics. I would love to have you to come back and we can talk about different healing. So thank you.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been amazing. It's been a huge honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone watching. So much love, and we will connect with you soon. All right. Bye.